Alrighty, welcome back to my channel. Namaste. So today is the turn of talking about toxic masculinity. Because yesterday I spoke about toxic femininity. Well, and I really dragged the girls and showed all the ways that, they had issues and how some of their behaviors was preventing them from getting relationships and everything. And the guys were like, oh, yeah, tell them, Annie, tell them accountability. So it's my turn now to lovingly, caringly tell the men what I think about toxic masculinity. Okay, so I'm going to approach this slightly kind of intellectual, but then the other half I'm going to be talking about how I see it play out on the internet. Okay, so what is toxic masculinity? So toxic masculinity basically describes the negative aspects of exaggerated masculinity. So the negative aspects of exaggerated masculine traits. Okay. The intellectual definition by the Journal of the School of Psychology says that it's socially repressive masculine traits that serve to foster domination, devaluation of women, homophobia, and wanton violence. Okay. However, other definitions talk about toxic masculinity and how it places importance on traits such as strength. So if you are strong, you're kind of seen as an alpha, versus if you're not so strong or you're kind of calm, you're seen as a beta. If you lack emotion, that's seen as a good masculine trait because you lack emotion, you don't cry, big boys don't cry kind of attitude. Versus if you're somebody who shows your emotion, you're seen as a beta or as a simp, I can't count how many videos I've watched online by some of the famous commentators, people like Kevin Samuels, people like my darling brother, Anton, and even some of my real brothers say it as well, like guys are not supposed to cry. Guys are not supposed to be emotional. Stop being emotional. Stop being emotional. The definition of toxic masculinity actually says that not allowing a man to cry is toxic. It's not good masculinity. It's actually toxic. There's this overbearing sense of like a real man is supposed to be completely self-sufficient. I can do everything myself. I don't need to help. I'm the alpha man in the group. I don't need to ask other men for help. I can do it all on my own. I don't need to ask a woman for help. Any man that kind of needs a woman's help is seen as a weak man. So most men are like beating their hands on their chest like, I'm a real man. I don't need a woman. I don't need a woman. We don't need women on this earth. If all the women should die, we will survive, says the Godfather, whom I respect and absolutely love. But if all the men die, if all the women die, we will survive. Kevin, I don't think so. My hair is dripping. Hold on. Let me get some. I just washed my hair. It's dripping, right? I think it is. Okay. Anyway, my hair was dripping. Right. Okay. My hair was dripping. But anyway, these things happen. So what was I saying? Yeah. Kevin Samuels. I like him. Sometimes even people who you like can be wrong about certain things. If all the women on earth were to die and there's only men left, it would just take you a matter of 1 week before all the men are going to start biting each other's faces off and killing each other. So that whole toxic masculinity that thinks that it doesn't need women, is more destructive than it is productive, is all I'm trying to say. So that's self-sufficiency versus the argument against codependency, i.e. men should depend on women and women should be able to depend on men. That's healthy masculinity. Okay. This whole narrative about masculine men are supposed to be dominant and they're supposed to be so dominant to the point where like it's the men that are on top all the time and anybody else who's not the alpha man is beneath them, and the alpha man is the one that dominates everything. Okay, that kind of toxic masculinity tends to foster behaviors such as aggression and violence. And sometimes we hear KS saying things like, Kevin Samuels saying things like, oh, when two men are talking or when they're arguing, there's just this low level threat of violence. That in itself is kind of a toxic way of looking at masculinity, because evolved masculinity should be able in this day and age. Yes, there was always a threat of violence in the past, but now that we're evolved and that we are more civilized, we should be able to kind of negotiate our way out of disagreements, at least on kind of a basic macro level, day-to-day level. I mean, we know that countries are usually got their nuclear weapons to start war at any time, but on a basic day-to-day, we're just talking to each other level. It's more kind of healthy to not be always thinking about complete domination and threat of violence. Toxic masculinity takes sexuality, the normal testosterone of men and their sexuality to the high level. So there's this idea that masculine men and alpha men are overtly sexual, that they're so sexual, they have a high sex drive and they're entitled to like getting sex whenever they want. If they're married to a woman, she should be ready to give her sex at the drop of a hat, whenever he wants it, whether she's turned on or not. She should be giving him sex whenever he wants it, and he doesn't even have to do that much for the woman. It's all about, rum pum 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 pum, suck my blah, 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 that they just feel like it's all about them. That is a kind of masculinity that the sociologists and psychologists are saying is toxic. It's not me, don't beat me up, I'm just the messenger. I've been doing a lot of reading and this is what they're telling me is toxic masculinity. Okay. Sexual virility is kind of seen as, and sexual aggression and sexual aggressiveness is seen as a good alpha trait to have. You're supposed to break her back. I'm gonna break your back in the bedroom kind of thing. Why do you have to break somebody's back? So there's that kind of violent way of expressing sexuality that the sociologists are saying is a form of toxic masculinity, guys. We need to calm it down. Right. Toxic masculinity also states that any man that is the opposite of that hyper alpha male is a simp, is a weakling, and is a beta male, and is not a real man. You may have a penis, but you're not a real man unless you're like an aggressive, beat everybody up and carry all the women, throw them over your back and sex them until their back breaks, and nobody should say anything about it because you're going to kill them. That's toxic, guys. That's just like the girls I was talking about yesterday with, I'm the table brigade. Why should I cook for a man? But this is the equivalent of the men doing the same. They're the same kind of toxic behavior, but expressing it in a different way. So these traits that are promoted, promote, like aggression, sexual aggression, control, showing no emotion or suppressing your emotion, hyper competitiveness, all the alpha guys are competing to be like at the top of the pack. It's just like putting a whole load of monkeys or apes, like all the apes have to fight. There has to be one leader ape, right? So these kind of masculine men always like to be at the forefront. They always like to be recognized as the leader. Look at me. I'm the leader of the pack. I will beat everybody up, kind of thing. They need to dominate. They tend to show low empathy. They also, like the women, show a sense of entitlement because they think they deserve the praise and adoration all the time. They think that they are right all the time. And anybody who disagrees with them either gets argued down or beaten up. If you really want to see what toxic masculinity looks like, go to a men's jail and go and see how the law of the jungle works. It's like each man for himself, and you beat yourself. You beat you basically have to fight yourself into being the leader. But in real society where we learn how to cooperate and talk to each other, and we're supposed to negotiate relationships with each other, especially negotiate relationships between men and women, there's no need for all that aggression, guys. Just chill. Drink some water. Relax. It's not that It's not that bad. What it should be like healthy masculinity. There should be open, you should be allowed to openly experience your emotion. It's okay if you're sad. Because what happens is that a lot of guys, I was reading, I think it might have been the Journal of Psychology or another journal, that was written by, I'm going to find out. I'll put it in the link if I find it, but if I don't hold me to it. But there is really research that shows that a lot of guys that are not allowed to express their emotions usually suppress it and suppress it. And it's this type of guys that they find that go out and commit like heinous crimes, just because the whole aggression has to come out one day. And these are the kind of men that usually end up taking guns and doing a lot of all these shootings that we see in public places against just random people. Okay, so it's okay for men to show their emotion. It's good for them to show some interdependence with the opposite sex. So with women, men should show vulnerability. It's okay to tell your wife you're not feeling good. It's okay to tell your friend that you're not feeling good. It's okay to say that you were hurt by something. It's okay to say that when my father died, I cried. It's okay to cry when you lose a parent. It's okay to cry if your child is sick. I mean, okay, please don't cry just because you had a flat tire, but it's okay to cry when you have big life changing experiences. Don't cry every day and don't cry non-stop, but it's okay to shed the tears. We don't want you to be completely feminine, but it's okay to show a little bit of your feminine side once in a while. But I'm not going to give you my lipstick. It's okay to show a bit of vulnerability. It's okay to show a bit of cooperation, kindness, and softness. Okay, it's okay to do that. Now that we finished the intellectual rambling, let's talk about real life and how toxic masculinity shows its ugly head in relationships. I did that for the girls. So what kind of behaviors do we see these men portray? What kind of things do they say about relationship? What behaviors do they have that I think negatively impacts their ability to meet, keep, and live a satisfied romantic relationship? Okay, I'll start with my good old uncle, the Godfather. He's the one reigning at the moment. I'll start with Uncle Kevin, the Godfather. He gives great advice. You know what I think about him. I've done the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay, so some of the things that he would say are things like the unrealistic expectations that these men, are going to have of women because of what they listen to when people like Kevin Samuels are speaking, when people like is it MTR, Mediocre Tutorial Review, the guy that just came back from testicular cancer, who I love very much because, as you know, I made a video about his condition and I was all supportive. Listen, all these guys are my brothers. I'm not saying anything bad should happen to them. I'm just saying these are some of the things that they say that I personally feel are toxic to relationships. We need to rethink these things just carefully before we before we apply them to our lives. Okay, there's the basic one that women need to be fit, friendly, and feminine. Okay, women do need to be fit, feminine, and friendly, but the area of toxic masculinity and unrealistic expectation is that in this discourse, a fit woman is a woman that's either an 8, 9, or a 10. Anybody who's 5 or a 6 is seen as average, so is placed under a lower class. The 8, 9 and the 10 as the really fit ones. So that's like Beyonce, Kelly Rowland, according to the Godfather. But it's not realistic because that's like the top 5% of women, right? Or the top 10%, I don't know. But women in this category are supposed to be fit, friendly, and feminine without any question. I agree that women should be as fit as they can. I don't believe that you should be 300 pounds. I don't believe that I should be 200 pounds. I'm always on a diet and I'm doing it for my health, not necessarily because I'm looking for a new husband, but I'm doing it for my health. So women, there is a message there. Women should be fit. It's very important. Women should be friendly. They shouldn't be combative to their man. People in general, not just women, people should not be combative. period. How do the Americans say it? Point blank, period. People should not be combative. But the narrative is that women should not be combative, which is true. But is that narrative saying that women should not be combative, but men should? Is that what you're telling us, Uncle Kevin, that women should not be combative, but men should? Because what we should be hearing is people should not be combative. That's what we should be hearing. So that narrative is kind of putting the complete responsibility on the woman to be the one that's the calm one, the meek one, to always be the, quiet and not be combative at all. Because if not, you're seen as a problem. Okay? I think that is slightly toxic unless it is explained and revised to show that it's not just the woman, but that it's the man and the woman that need to not be combative. It's the man and the woman that needs to be fit. Okay? Yes, there is a argument that as long as men have money and as long as men have good behavior, they don't necessarily need to be handsome or they don't necessarily need to be fit, that the woman should be able to just take them because they're masculine. I agree and disagree with that. Okay, in the old days, I don't think women were going around thinking, oh my God, is he 6'2"? Or oh my God, is he 5'4"? Or oh my God, is he 100 pounds? Or oh my God, is he 200 pounds? I think women were probably just going around saying, who knows how to kill the most lions? And yes, I know that big people are theoretically the strongest. It's assumed that they will be the strongest, but they're usually quite a few very strong, non-tall men as well. So in those days, it won't just be the tall man. It would just be anybody who's strong. So fitness and desirability should not just be seen as being a size 9 or a 10, and women should not just see it as being 6'1" or 6'2", because there are a hell of a lot of great, wonderful men who are 5'2", 4 foot even, right? There's some 4-foot men that are wonderful human beings that have great jobs, that have good behaviors and everything, and they too deserve to find love. So the unrealistic expectation about fit, friendly, and feminine is a good expectation, but it shouldn't be taken completely out of context to the point where if I'm somebody who's stating my views and I have a loud voice, that is automatically seen as not feminine. That is a toxic way to look at life. Okay, the second thing that they always say in this community is that women's role is to provide sex, sandwiches, and silence. So basically, I should be muted. Guys, if you have a woman that doesn't talk, you're going to be bored in like after 24 hours. Can you imagine living in a woman that's just sitting there like, here's your sandwich, dear. "30 minutes later, 3 hours later, 24 hours later, I'm being silent. After 2 days, you're going to choke and say something. Say something. So what am I saying here? It's not really true that you want a silent woman. What you're trying to say is that you don't want a woman that is going to just be like 24 hours a day. So you don't really want sex, sandwich, and silence. What you want is sex, food, and a woman that doesn't talk 24 hours a day. But the truth is, do you want a man that talks 24 hours a day? No, you don't. So it's not really only women that you should be sending this message to. If you had a business partner who's a guy that talks too much, you're not going to like it either. So it's not a women-specific trait. I know you said because women are labeled as ones that talk too much. But there's some very quiet women that really don't like to talk that much. And there are a lot of men that like to talk too much too. So I'm just saying, let's let's just be careful about the conversations and the labels and stereotypes that we're putting on each other. Um, because what happens is that Kevin is a very intelligent man. He's a marketing man. He's doing his YouTube. There's an element of entertainment. But there are a lot of young people who are not exposed, who literally are taking his word as gospel, and they don't understand the nuances of what he's saying. And that's when it becomes toxic, because many of them don't have the emotional intelligence that is needed for them to be able to know that he really doesn't mean you want a silent wife. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. That message can be toxic. So then again, there's this whole discourse about all men have the right to exercise options. All men have, or high value men have the right to exercise options, and women should just take it. Well, I'm a polygamist, so I don't care. If you want to have 355 girlfriends, that's your business. I'm not that interested in, I don't want to say that, no. Okay. How can I phrase this in a way that's not going to sound politically incorrect? I was trained I enjoy my man's company, but I don't need him around me 24/7. So I was always trained to be kind of the wife, and not really that it wasn't necessary to live inside your husband's pocket. So I'm not one of those that's going to be picking up phones to check. I mean, to put it quite crudely, the penis doesn't run out. It doesn't have a meter. And the penis is one that, no matter how many times you use it, it's still going to just be the same penis. It doesn't diminish. It's not like a glass of water that if you drink it, the water is going to finish. The penis doesn't finish, right? Okay, I know there's ED, but technically the penis doesn't reduce in size or vigor, depending on how you use it. So my grandmother used to say, it doesn't have a meter. They didn't put your name on it. As long as they don't bring a disease to you, I don't even want to know what you're doing. I don't care. But I know that I'm an anomaly. There are a lot of women who do care, and you would need to have a conversation with your wife about whether or not she actually wants you to engage in extramarital affairs. Because if you really love a woman, you would want to do what will make her happy, is all I'm trying to say. So it's toxic to say that women should just be okay with you cheating just because you have money. But then all the listeners are thinking, oh, yeah, okay, women are supposed to just, allow it and have no right to say anything. He explained that that's not what he means. That he did explain that there has to be some discretion, but the community in general that are following him actually misinterpreting this as men should just go out and be cheating as much as they want because women should not complain at all. And that is a form of toxic masculinity and misogyny. Basically, what toxic masculinity does is that it breeds misogyny. And in our community, it breeds misogynoir. Yeah, against the black woman. Right. There's this other sense of entitlement that just because you're providing, okay, and you're doing your own duty, the woman has no right to complain about anything. That's a toxic way of thinking. Just because you're providing for a woman doesn't mean that you don't have to meet her other psychological, emotional needs, and that she may not need you to still kind of offload some of what she's feeling on you. Because, my guy provides everything for me. I've not worked for years, but then he still cares about what I think. He still wants to know how my day went. When I'm tired, he'll still say, oh, you look tired. Why don't you come and rest? So it's toxic to kind of train men that they don't need to show compassion to women or compassion to their wives. That's very toxic. I think that would be a recipe for a very bad marriage and a toxic relationship. The man should be caring for the woman and the woman should be caring for the man. Okay, there is a bit of Lack of accountability, just as I said, the women tend to encourage bad behavior in other women. I do find that even though the men are not, well, they do encourage some bad behavior, for example, with the cheating one, for example, with expecting your wife to be silent and then telling men that this is what they should be expecting. There's this whole narrative of people just coming online and saying, oh, how many pounds are you? There's just kind of general disrespect going on because, they feel like they now have the power to complain, which men should have the power to complain. But it almost seems like, there's these keyboard ninjas that it just feels like they're having like an orgasm of like they just love to insult any woman that comes. Oh, look at her wig. What is that on her head? Hey, child, why do you care what's on my head? I'm not your wife. I don't need to explain to you whether my wig is shaggy or not. I'm not your wife. You don't pay my bills. Don't worry what a woman who's not your wife is doing. Don't be online saying she's too fat or I don't like her lipstick or she's got too much makeup on her. Take off the makeup. Da, 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 da. She's not your wife. Go and face your own wife if you have one. So that's kind of toxic behavior online. I know that there are trolls there, but the trolls seem to feel like they're empowered by this energy that they feel that the manosphere and the red pill community is giving them. And that is toxic and does not really help foster productive relationships between decent men and decent women. We're talking about high value dating here. We need to all be accountable. The other area where I think that there is a little bit of, well, not a bit, it's kind of worrying. I know that I have an age gap relationship and, I married young and my husband was 13 years older than me. But still, I think there's kind of this toxic need for very, very young women by very, very old men. And they brag about it. It's like, I want to be with a 21-year-old. Even though I'm 50, I deserve to have a 22-year-old, like so that I can mold her. That in itself is toxic masculinity rearing its old head, because toxic masculinity likes to control, likes the idea of like entitlement to control every area of their environment. And one way that it raises its head in relationship is that they want to control the woman that they're with. Just the way the women want to spend the man's money without cooking, men want to have women that they can control who will not question anything they're saying, who they feel is, kind of immature and timid. And so the only way they feel they can get that is to go younger and younger and younger and younger. So they have this unnatural desire for very young women. Let me tell you something. The man I'm with, he is 22 years older than me. So he is older than me. But one of the things he's always telling me is, oh my God, you're only, by the time I'm this age, you're only going to be this age. I don't know what you're going to do. You will be without me for a while, probably by the time you're like 70, I might not be here anymore. And this, and it worries him. And he's like, oh, I need to make sure that I put everything in place so that you can be okay after I'm gone. When a 50-year-old, a 55, we don't even have children. I've already had my children when I was young. When a 55-year-old wants to get with a 22-year-old and start having children, you need to be aware of the fact that by the time you're 80, that child is only going to be 30. You're already going to be past it, usually by the time you're 75, and that child is going to be 15. Think about it. The mother is going to be the only one to suffer to raise that child anyway after you're gone. So it's kind of, I just feel like it's kind of a little bit selfish to want to kind of put yourself on somebody so young to give them that burden. It's just a one-sided way of looking at relationships that I see men do. You're only looking at it from the point of view of you're older, you'll be able to mold her. Yes, she'll be submissive, blah, 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 blah. But, she too will be with an old man at such a young age. When I was young, I didn't get with a 50-year-old. I only kind of moved the goalpost higher as I got older. Because at the age of 45, I had no use for a 40-year-old because I didn't want to have any more kids and I didn't really want any more stress. So it made sense for me to date somebody who was way, way older than me because I needed a stabilizing energy in my life. But a 21-year-old doesn't need that. She needs someone who's a little bit younger, maybe 35, maximum 40. I think 50-year-olds should be looking at marrying somebody who is at least 30. So I think anything over 20 years of an age gap, especially when the woman is still so young, I think it's kind of like an unfair balance of power. But that's just my thoughts. You don't have to take it. It's just what I think. Um, what else did I want to talk about? Oh yes, the other part of toxic. Oh gosh, 31 minutes. There's four more. The other part of toxic masculinity that I think is going around is this false narrative about trying to threaten women that they're gonna die alone. I think it's toxic to try and frighten women into settling or entering relationships because of the threat of dying alone. But actually, really, the research shows that it's actually men that suffer negative effects of being alone when they're older. They get more cancers, they get more depression, they get more heart disease, and so on and so forth, just because they don't have a stabilizing woman to live with them. So it's the men that actually suffer from ill health. The research actually shows that women are actually happier on their own when they don't have the caregiving burdens of looking after a man and when their children are grown up or if they didn't have any children. So they were higher on the happiness scale. So it's a false narrative to think that women being alone when they're old is a problem. It's not a problem for the woman. Okay? It's not a problem for the woman. That's what the research shows. And my mother is in her 70s. Her husband died when she was in her late 40s, and she never remarried anybody, and she's doing just fine. We have to go and visit her all the time, though. You see, the world has changed, you see. The world has changed. This would have been true when we didn't have all this kind of government help. We didn't have all this kind of like women's right. The world, society has moved on from 100 years ago where women couldn't buy property and women really did heavily rely on the protection of a man. We just need to accept that feminism, whether we agree with it or not, has removed women from being that kind of needy demographic, and now that a lot of them can stand on their own. So when men want to come to the table to kind of argue for the need of a relationship, instead of using the fear tactics to say that, oh, you're gonna die alone, just say, listen, we need each other, guys. We need each other. Let's try and negotiate. I need you as a woman. I need you to calm me down. I need you to make sure I don't get cancer. I need you to watch TV within the night. I need you to have sex with. I need you to be a calming force in my life. Will you like to get with me? I promise that I will give you protection. I promise that I will provide for you. Of course, I don't want you to get fat. Can we negotiate that we will go to the gym together? Can we negotiate that we're not going to give each other grief? Can we negotiate that we're going to forgive each other? Let's negotiate into a relationship rather than scare tactics or insult women into relationship by telling them, go and buy a dog, you're going to die alone. Let's not shame women into relationship. Let's not guilt women into relationship. Let's not scare women into relationships. That's when the masculinity that I'm looking at recently is becoming toxic, because you're all using scare tactics. In the old days, if a man wants a woman, he woos her. But now it's like the men online are like, if you don't go with a man, you're going to die alone. If you don't go with a man, you're going to get a dog. If you don't go with a man, winter is coming, you're going to be raped and killed in your home. So go with a man. No, women are supposed to want to go with a man because they like the man, because they feel protected, because they feel like there's a negotiation taking place, because they feel valued. We need to be teaching the men how to use a different kind of language rather than these languages that we are hearing online at the moment. Right. The narrative that men can survive alone, I've covered that already. The narrative that men are entitled to sex by the third date, I've covered that already. I don't believe that women should be taking men on dates and using them as free dinners. But then I don't think that men also should be taking women on dates and expecting sex in return. This is not it is a marketplace, but we shouldn't that kind of like commercialize what a relationship is. We're supposed to negotiate. It's supposed to be based on the good old traditional values of liking each other and wanting to set up a relationship with each other. I know that you think it's old fashioned, and I know people think you're old. You don't know what's going on now. Yeah, what's going on now is ruining you people. What's going on now is making all of you alone. What's going on now is making men incels and women bitter spinsters. So it's not working for any of you guys. It's not working for any of you. So when it's not working for you, you need to listen to the old school and ask them how they did it and learn from the old school. All the sex you're having and swiping up and down and rotating men through your pum pum, and the men rotating women through their bedroom, who is it helping? Nobody. Body count just going up. No emotional fulfillment. You know that you cry when you're on your own. None of you want to admit it, right? But you all know that after you've made all your YouTube videos and after you've all insulted each other, after Cynthia G has insulted everybody, after Kevin has insulted everybody, you know, when you go home and the TV is off and the door is closed and there's nobody looking, admit it. You feel lonely. Admit it. You feel lonely. So stop pretending and just negotiate with a woman to get so that you can have somebody to come and relieve you of that loneliness. We are social human beings. Nobody, the biggest punishment you can give anybody, even when they are in prison, the biggest punishment is to put them in solitary confinement, because they know the mental torture that goes on when you're not socializing with anybody. So living on your own is just like putting yourself on emotional solitary confinement, just because you can afford to feed yourself and everything. But you're on emotional solitary confinement. Get out of your solitary confinement, guys and women. Okay? Negotiate yourself into a relationship. Right, there's this other part of toxic masculinity that I don't like, which is the baby mama narrative. There's this narrative that is saying that, you know, women are baby mamas and, you know, blah, 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 blah. We don't want to marry baby mamas. And there's a double standard. I was watching Kendra G, her Instagram live the other day. There was a guy who was a baby papa. He had two baby papa, baby father. You guys are teaching me all these terms that I never knew anything about. I need to get an American glossary out so that I can know the meaning of all these words. But this baby papa had a 3-year-old child and a 10-year-old child. Very handsome guy. By two different women, one of whom he had taken to court before. And when Kendra G asked him, what kind of woman do you want? He said, I don't want a person with kids. And then Kendra said, but you've got kids. You've got 2 baby mamas. And it was so that's a double standard. You've already got your own baby. You're a man with children already, so you should be willing to accommodate women with children as well. Yeah? So I think that's a false narrative. And then the blaming of the baby mamas again is a false narrative, because even though they are, and I made a video about Pina, gosh, I forget people's names. The Gobadia lady, Faline. I made a video about Faline. I made a video about Faline Pina, and I openly condemned baby mamadom. Like, i.e., you know, come on, we can all make a mistake once and have a baby. You can make a mistake twice, but man, when you have 4 baby fathers, 4 baby babies for 4 baby fathers, that's kind of like showing that you're not really learning anything. But the issue is, while the women are still culpable for the complete rise of fatherless babies in the house, there is also, on the flip side of that coin, a pandemic of absent fathers. So the women are not making the babies on their own. The women are making their babies with men. So my argument is that if you don't want a baby, then put a what in it? Put a raincoat on it, you know? If you don't want a baby, so men need to take responsibility. It's toxic masculinity to think that the responsibility for reproduction or family planning should only be on the woman. Okay? Men should be training men how not to get women pregnant if they don't want babies. is all I'm saying. And all these men who are fatherless, are born to a man and a woman. Where is the father in that story? And I'm not talking about legitimate divorce. I'm talking about all these unmarried women. Who is helping them make these babies? So there should be some education of the men as well, to make sure that these baby mamas or these babies are not being born out of wedlock, is all I'm trying to say. Right. So that's it. That's my story about toxic masculinity and how it presents itself in relationships. So that's the dark side of masculinity. I was talking about, how women are very difficult to deal with in the other video. And these are the things that make it very difficult for women to deal with men. So how can we meet in the middle? How can we meet in the middle? I might have to do a video about how we can meet in the middle. I was going to talk about the KS perspective and the Cynthia G perspective. I think, what was I going to say about that? I just thought that all this kind of bashing of each other, where the man, well, let me not call it the KS, but let me say the red pill, the angry men, they're just bashing women. Women are all too fat, and women are all too promiscuous, and women are just too argumentative, and women are the devil. It's women's fault that the sky is blue. It's women's fault that it rained today. It's women's fault that there was an earthquake in India. It's women's fault that, Jesus Christ has not come back. We just kind of blame women for everything. I think that's toxic, but I also think it's very, very toxic from the woman red pill, female red pill side, where I think it's disgusting that people like Cynthia G say things like, black boys should be killed. So basically, her father should not have existed because her father is a black man. So I think it's absolutely disgusting and abhorrent for anybody to even suggest that black fetuses should be aborted. That is disgusting. It puts a taste of vinegar in my mind. She should be ashamed of herself to even suggest that we shouldn't have black men in this world. That's disgusting. Okay, but then at the same time, we hear on the other side of the road, we hear black men like Kevin Samuels saying things like black women are the most ugly of all the races. That's indirect. I don't understand the cognitive dissonance that's going on. If you're saying that all black women are the lowest on the tantrum scale of beauty, you're indirectly saying that your sister is ugly. Your sister is one of the ugliest races in the world. Your mother, you're insulting your own mother because you were born of a black woman. So we're indirectly kind of basically shooting at all our families, insulting all our family members by saying all black boys. The women are killing off all their family members because if they kill all black men, they kill all your brothers. And the men are saying that all the black women are ugly and the black women are the ugliest. That means that you believe all your sisters and your father, your mother and your father's wife are all ugly. And if you have a daughter, she's the ugliest. How can you think a person who is the same race as your daughter is one of the ugliest, is the ugliest race, ugliest woman in the world? I don't know what to say, but you know what I mean. Come on. You think you're attacking everybody else, but we're essentially attacking our own selves. We're essentially attacking our own selves. This needs to stop. You're shooting at other people, but you're really shooting your own family members. It's a very, very sad situation to see this happen. We all just need to learn to get along. All right? Take care. Like, share, and subscribe. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.